Ever since my video on ninjas in fighting games, I've received the most requests to cover a rival warrior class in fighting games, the Mighty Samurai. A proper definition of a samurai is a military noble officer in Japan during the Edo period. However, fans of historical fiction usually recognize them as badasses with a sword and armor that may or may not reside in the 1600s. I'm going to go over my favorite samurai in fighting games in this video. I'm simply going to be judging if these characters are samurai based on appearances, tropes, and their in-game bios. Another note is I won't be implementing a one character per series rule, but since I don't want certain franchises to hog all the spots, I may omit some good potential choices for the sake of variety if we have a franchise or two with many great fictional samurai on a single roster. So let's duel with the top 10 samurai in fighting games. Number 10, Silver Samurai in the Marvel vs. Capcom series. Silver Samurai is an X-Men mutant villain with the special power of being a samurai. Alright, there's more to him. He can imbue his sword with elemental power, electricity, fire, ice. It's a pretty cool power. Despite that, I usually forget that Silver Samurai exists in the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise. His iconic level always felt like it was on par with Omega Red being included in these games. What I mean by that is I feel they were mainly included on the roster since they benefited from being in a Marvel game during the big X-Men boom of the 90s, so some of the B-rank X-Men characters could sneak in due to the series' popularity. However, Marvel never made Beast playable, so boo. In the end, I'm glad Silver Samurai got some spotlight, but he's likely not showing up on many wish lists for X-Men that fans want to see return in the crossover. Those lists are most likely filled with Wolverine, Storm, Magneto, Cyclops, Optic Blast Man, and Sentinel. Number 9, Ga-O from Samurai Showdown. As you can tell from the series name and subject matter, there are a lot of potential choices in these games for this list, which means plenty of popular omissions. So what makes me use a slot on a final boss from this series that first appeared in the 5th game and not much else? The big reason is he's based on the real feudal lord Oda Nobunaga. I may not know much about history, but video games set in this time period have taught me that he's that one historical figure that somehow invades any fictional world since his power is just that great. Remember that time he was a Pokemon trainer? Everyone loves Nobunaga!
Nobunaga is my favorite Inuyasha character. Well, that's not true. Everyone knows Haohmaru is my favorite. Unless you haven't seen me in a video before, then you probably didn't know that.
Back on track, Ga-O is my favorite boss from the series since his presence really teems with power. The man can just punch a projectile right back at you. And look at this spear! This guy's not playing around. What's also not playing around is that he has a dark demon emperor spirit inside of him that possesses him to make him stronger. Just your standard evil power-up, nothing to see here, except a fiery demon horse. Now I think I know who Nightmare's greatest influence is. Number 8, Sodom from Street Fighter. If I pronounced his name correctly, I realized just now that I've never heard his name said out loud. Anyway, let's get this straight. Sodom is a horrible samurai since he likely learned his samurai-esque moves only from watching old samurai movies or something similar to that. And he picked up all of his cool samurai gear due to his love of Japanese culture and wanting to mimic a samurai as accurately as possible.
I'm wondering if he's wearing pants.
No, it's fine. He wears jeans. He could only afford the top half of the samurai outfit.
But it's skin color on the pants part.
That's just some old official artwork where they were trying to do something different. Don't worry about it. He's fully dressed in all of his artwork now.
But also his stomach. There's no clothes there.
It was a hot day and indecent exposure laws don't exist in the Street Fighter universe.
Did Poison dress him today? They're matching.
In reality, Sodom's just a reformed street thug who taught himself martial arts and has samurai weapons because he truly thinks he is, or could be, a legit samurai. All I can say is, imitation is the highest form of flattery, so maybe the other samurai would genuinely appreciate the charade of Sodom. He's the closest thing we've seen to an actual samurai in the Street Fighter series, looking at all the... wait, what's that game in the mix?
That's Street Fighter EX.
Oh right, the game with Garuda, the cursed samurai with blades in his armor. I've made a grave miscalculation. Better number 8. Garuda from Street Fighter EX. He has swords, spirits, swag, and no discernible personality besides give me blood and souls and such. Final verdict, of the Street Fighter samurai, Garuda's the cool one and Sodom's the funny, eccentric, and illegitimate one. Number 7. Hakumen from BlazBlue. He may not be from the traditional samurai time period, but his influence screams samurai. Actually, developer Arc System Works wanted to combine as many cliché cool elements as possible when designing Hakumen, so he became an interdimensional cyborg silver-haired samurai from the future. As for his story, BlazBlue's story gets confusing with all the dimension hopping. Hakumen is basically a physical projection who's weaker because he's not fully in the main story's dimension. You could essentially say he's only using 20% of his power. He's Togoroing this, and also he has to be on a level playing field for a fighting game, you know, that sort of balance. They needed an explanation on why he doesn't obliterate most of the cast considering his skills. For his moveset, besides your cool slashes, if I had to summarize fighting against his main gimmick, it would go touch, don't touch. Lots of counters, but I should expect that from a guy who has eyes on his everything. Number 6. Baiken from Guilty Gear. Baiken relies on old-fashioned cold steel weapons as a samurai, and a single fireball. Guess you want that projectile when you're on a 2D plane. I like her dragon cannon the most if we have to go for a ranged attack. Actually, scratch that. I like anything that she hides in her sleeve. Long story short, it's all on a rope with these attacks. It's like if Shenko wanted to keep all of her sleeve items, or just Moose if I wanted to go for the blatant Ranma reference. Baiken's mood is always silently pissed off at everyone. She just wants to be left alone as she's on the road to get revenge on the man that killed her family. Typical vengeance plot, but she's cool enough for cliches. You can even tell with her travel partner Anji that she just bears with him enough to not want to kill him. Anji's having a good time though. Baiken's most recent iteration has even raised her badass levels with extra flair, extra hair, an investment in a fancy new eye patch, and rebelling against society by wearing her coat over her shoulders like a cape. Number 5. Mitsurugi from Soul Calibur. Based on Samurai Miyamoto Musashi, Mitsurugi is a character I can't imagine Soul Calibur without, even though I never really play him. He has a great moveset of tools for beginners, but can still be dangerous in the hands of an expert. Mitsurugi feels like he could be the main character of the series if he wanted to be, but he's more off to the side of the main plot to not get the number 1 protagonist title. He has main character traits like always searching for the strongest opponent, and being confident enough to say his name will go down in history.
Not even the king of hell could stand against my blade.
His other main journey is to obtain the legendary sword Soul Edge, since he thinks it will make him stronger, but whenever he obtains it in his endings, his reaction is on par with, this thing is kinda evil. No thanks. My favorite Mitsurugi attack is his multiple quick sword pokes. It looks really cool, but it's also kinda funny. What also looks cool is his Ronin samurai outfit, which he keeps similar aspects of in each new game while changing up some details to still update it.
What's with the pom-pom?
It was the style of the time. You weren't considered a great samurai unless you had a frizzed out ponytail.
I like how he pays attention to what's in style. Does he read Samurai Vogue?
Read it? Heh, he writes the articles in Samurai Vogue.
Want a taste?
Number 4. Bishamon from Darkstalkers. The actual Bishamon is just your average guy with an average life who has no intent of being a samurai. Sure enough, he finds a samurai sword and armor in an antique shop, and all of a sudden he was super interested in the way of the samurai. That is, only because the armor overrode his mind and possessed him until he woke up in a daze the next day. Bishamon's armor is called Hanya and was worn by one of Jedda's servants many years ago. Wearing this armor enhances the skills of the user and causes them to do evil actions like stab a yeti with a sword. According to Bishamon's bio, Nobunaga also wore this armor at some point because he transcends fiction once again. The spirit of this armor craves blood and souls, and apparently all the blood on his sword is like Kentucky Fried Chicken since Bishamon thinks it's weapon-licking good. Besides using his sword and the burning souls around him, his fighting style utilizes some visually impressive spiritual attacks. He can see if you're going to carry all that weight by piling a bunch of blocks on top of you, summons the Hand of Justice justice to freshly squeeze you like Tropicana, and summons past warriors to assist him. Not sure who these guys are, but I assume they're either former users of the armor or soldiers who were led in battle by Hanya's user at some point. Regardless, this armor has plenty of tricks that only 600 years of experience and a bit of a curse can provide. Number 3, Haohmaru from Samurai Showdown. Being the protagonist of the premier samurai-themed fighting game gets you points regardless of your backstory and moveset. However, it still helps when you're an interesting fellow. He's your standard wandering warrior. He trains with many other roster members because he just loves to fight, but he's more than just a stoic fighter, he's no Ryu. Haohmaru is chill and loves to showboat. More than that, he loves his sake, even using his sake jug to reflect projectiles. He has your standard moves for beginners, with your average range slashes and anti-airs. For something more flashy, he can whip up a tornado with his blade, so I guess him and Ryu have a bit more in common than I realized. Hey, they even follow the same red, white, and black color scheme with unkempt brunette hair. At least Haohmaru puts on footwear. Number 2, Genjuro Kibagami from Samurai Showdown. While I always like the morally good characters like Haohmaru, Genjuro is an occasion where the less ethical character gets my attention. Genjuro fills the role of the neutral character who's not against killing, though he more reminds me of Shadaloo Sagat since he rivals the main character with a more corrupted past and a massive scar, only on the opposite side of his body. He has many cliche cool lines like, "Wow, he was weak," or "This fiend will have your butt." He's Haohmaru's rival since they trained together as teenagers, only being separated because Genjuro thought weak opponents deserved death. While his backstory goes between tragic and "this guy's kind of an ass," we can all agree he has one of the best movesets visually. Besides the fact that his ruthless nature is reflected in how strongly he swings his sword, he can channel ki through his blade. One-upping that, he can summon Japanese Hanafuda playing cards when slashing his sword. I know his main interest is gambling, but why does he do that? It makes this stone-cold serious assassin feel much more like a fun-loving guy. And he has a frog buddy. What immoral man has a frog as a pet? Have I characterized this man wrongly? Oh lord, don't let him be misunderstood. Because of that style in his moveset, Genjuro was always my favorite samurai in this series. However, when looking at any warrior class in Samurai Showdown, then he'd have some hard competition. Here's a few honorable mentions. Washizuka from The Last Blade. Hey, it's SNK's other weapon-based 2D fighter that takes place in the samurai era, this time based on Rurouni Kenshin. Lots of great choices in this franchise, but Washizuka always felt like the no-nonsense traditional samurai who likes order and a clean blade. Kenshi from Mortal Kombat? I think he's just an armored swordsman and doesn't quite fit the samurai description. With all the warrior class tropes in Mortal Kombat, I would not be surprised if this telekinetic blind swordsman was based on the samurai, but some of his most notable aspects more felt like guy with cursed sword instead of a modern samurai. Unless you just want to consider Ronin armor Kenshi, then you might have an argument. Every character from Bushido Blade. Never got into this game series, but I respect the unique mechanics of no health bar and instant kill moves that can be activated by hitting your opponents in the right spot. It's like real sword fighting. And every notable omission from Samurai Showdown. This decision-making process is too subjective to please everyone and avoid having over half the list be from this series. Seriously, you have the likes of Ukyo, Jubei, Yoshitora, Shadow Asura, Shizumaru, take your pick. My number 1 may be a controversial choice since the character is technically a ninja according to his bios, but he has the samurai armor, samurai weaponry, samurai influence in his design, and was the character that I chose for number 1 mentally when this video was merely in the planning stages. It's Yoshimitsu from Tekken and Soul Calibur. Yoshimitsu is a leader of the Manji clan, a group of defined ninjas, but Yoshimitsu is different from your normal ninja. He's more like a ninja and samurai combined, and his armor is based on that of a military samurai, which is why I consider him to be a samurai. Now that we have semantics out of the way, we can all appreciate how much of a badass Yoshimitsu is.
Brace thyself! You shall repent!
He's a combination of cool, eccentric, and mysterious. Starting off with his sword, it holds many of his weird bladed techniques. He can turn it into a pogo stick, or a windmill, or a helicopter, and then he can use his helicopter sword to surely take his opponent for a ride. He can also take a seat, which is how he chooses to teleport from below or above, or just do an awkward looking healing move. And if all else fails, he can use this stance as a killer taunt.
For shame! For shame!
Some of his more questionable life choices in battle involve spinning like a madman, possibly getting too dizzy, and committing seppuku, but don't worry because he makes it practical. He can also spit poison, but I'm not quite sure where he gets it from. It adds to his mystique, which is maximized by the fact that he somehow survives from the feudal era to the modern day. The real answer is there are multiple Yoshimitsus. Turns out, Yoshimitsu is a given title to a certain member of the Manji clan wielding these weapons, first displayed when Soul Calibur 5 had a second Yoshimitsu appear after the first one was slain between games.
I will avenge you, Chief!
All his moves, and even his voice, were the same as the previous Yoshimitsu, but it at least explains why he's seemingly immortal and still human, and yes, despite all his weirdness, he's just a dude with a lot of weird tricks. The first Soul Calibur Yoshimitsu was just a human with a cool robot arm, and would you believe me if I said Nobunaga had a part in why he lost his original arm? The second Yoshimitsu had no story since he was just in Soul Calibur 5, and the Yoshimitsu that took over centuries down the road in Tekken is questionably human.
You win!
I'm assuming he is, but the weird vocal effects surrounding him and the fact that his armor feels like it's his skin makes me wonder what the Manji clan is up to. The first Yoshimitsu covered all of his skin and only exposed his robot arm, so this one could just be well armored like his predecessor. Regardless, all these Yoshimitsus are still stand-up guys. They all lead Robin Hood-like missions to steal from the immorally wealthy and spread it around, along with destroying anything evil. Part of the reason he's against evil is also because his sword is cursed and drives the user insane if it doesn't slash evil things. Evil is like meth to that sword. And if I wanted this video to go on for another hour, I would talk about Yoshimitsu's massive wardrobe that he changes greatly in each game. Choose your favorite costume as the best. There are no wrong answers. However, I wonder what inspired him to become Calamari Man in Tekken 7. Anyway, Yoshimitsu has everything I love in a samurai, even if his resume job description says ninja, still making him my #1 fighting game samurai.
Heaven's net casts wide, though its course nothing slips through.
So, what did you think? Was Yoshimitsu too ninja-like for #1, or is his sheer coolness enough to overwrite that? Which fighting game samurai got left behind the wall of 10 in this video? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.